Good evening, and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is sexual violence. We have with us Carrie Hardy as our guest co-host, and our guest on this evening is Miss Rebecca Baylog of the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, or your local organizations, or your faith community, you also can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. So, Carrie, would you like to greet our listeners on this evening?
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Hardy. I'm a creative writer who specializes in women's experiences, especially in regards to trauma and self and identity, things like that. And I'm really happy to be here. And it's a bit of a heavy topic, but we'll get through it, and I hope that you guys take something from this and find some healing in it.
Thank you. Rebecca, you want to say hello to our listeners on this evening?
Good day to everyone. Yes, I'm happy to be here again. This group is a wonderful group. This podcast is awesome, and it's really wonderful. It's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. You know, we are in April, so whoop whoop. Very excited to have this conversation this month. A lot of great work is being done out there to raise awareness and really end the silence, right, for all of our communities. So, yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. We'll be live.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, listeners, as usual, we want to start the evening with sharing some resources. First, we have the Polaris Project, Polaris. The Polaris Project is the National Human Trafficking Hotline. The number is 1-888-373-7888. Or you can text the words Be Free, BEFREE. You can text Be Free to the numbers 233-733. And the website is www.polarisproject.org. Also, Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape, PCAR. Their website is www.pcar.org. We also have Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. Their website is www.rainn.org. And we also have the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. Their website is www.nsvrc.org. So again, listeners, on tonight, our topic is sexual violence. So, Rebecca, first, I want to ask you if you would just tell our listeners about the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Thank you. Those are wonderful resources. Yes, they provide training and technical assistance to direct service programs. So if you reach out to any of those, they can direct you to a direct service program in your city, in your rural community, on your reservation. So those were wonderful resources. Yeah, so I'm here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Pennsylvania on the East Coast, but my home office is in Minnesota. And the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition, we provide training and technical assistance under two pillars of our work. The first pillar, we support every tribe in the state of Minnesota doing sexual assault work. And then the second pillar is we do national TA for all of Indian country for sex trafficking and supporting all other tribal sexual assault coalitions. So we do a lot of local work and then national, what we call Turtle Island and Alaska. So our focus is ending sexual violence in Indian country. Yeah. And we've also been doing a lot of work around diversity in the entire movement across the United States to bring in conversations about how do we link arms and do this work collectively across all races and ethnicities. So that's something we've been doing a little bit more of, because Indian country isn't suffering alone in silence. The Black community isn't, the Asian community isn't, API and faith communities and all other identities. So that's been really exciting over at MilSAC.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as you mentioned, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Rebecca, I would ask you on a very basic level, because surprisingly, it's still something that needs to be made aware. But just on a very basic level, can you define what sexual assault is? What actually constitutes as sexual violence?
Anything that violates your autonomy as a human being on a sexual nature, which is I consent or I do not consent. And it kind of starts and ends there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I know some individuals, I think, hold on to the word violence, but sexual assault and sexual violence does not always come across in a manner where, you would visualize clothes being torn off or the violence in that manner. It constitutes, even just my saying no and you completely ignoring what I just said. It constitutes you trying to psychologically and mentally manipulate someone into what you want to get from them sexually. So I just wanted to emphasize that it goes beyond the physical violent part. It also includes that mental and emotional part. I think that's overlooked at times. Just as in domestic violence, we look at an individual and say, you're not broken, you're not bleeding, you're not bloody. I don't see any visual signs of what you just described, so nothing happened. But I just want to emphasize that those are not just the signs that you look for. It is mental and emotional also. And the scars are real.
Minister, thank you. Yes, and to go it's a broad stroke, right? So it's not just the sexual violence we see in movies, the horrible images, and I'm a survivor advocate, so I've been down that road and still on my healing journey. But now we're in a pandemic where it's just changed so much. So even if we text a photo of our bodies consensually and we share it with someone we intend to share it with, and then they copy that or they paste it or they save it on their phone and then they send it out to whomever, that is sexual violence as well.
Yes.
OnlyFans is a form of sexual violence, right? So yeah, the definition is really a broad stroke of I consent to, I own my body. This is my temple.
Yes.
You have no rights to make choices. So yeah, it's a big conversation. A lot of people don't know that it's not what's in the movies. If that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad that you touched on the technology, because social media also contributes to sexual assault and sexual violence. Text messages, posts on Facebook and Instagram, tweets on Twitter, all of those can be used to commit sexual assault and sexual violence against another person. And it's not just as simple as saying, it's a picture, take it down. No, it's a picture and someone's life may have just been destroyed because of it. And I just think that the technology part of it needs to be realized and acknowledged, how hurtful and how damaging that can be as well.
Yeah, I think there's a word that's fairly new, maybe a couple years old, but it's called revenge porn.
Yes.
You know, you break up with someone and then they take all your very personal, you know, images, whatever they are. We have the autonomy to be on OnlyFans. We can choose that. We can choose to sext and text, and people have the autonomy and consent to do that. But man, after a breakup, then that gets shared all over the place.
Yeah.
So that revenge porn is really bad.
Yeah. That opens up an entirely different door. So on Monday, I'm actually going to be speaking at Gwinnett Mercy University for their Take Back the Night event. Can you talk about some of the efforts to bring awareness to sexual assault, some of the efforts that the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition are involved in or participating in or supporting?
Yeah, so there's these culturally specific avenues that it happens in Indian country, and then there's ways that they intersect across all of our nations. So the Take Back the Night, man, that's so good, especially in a university setting, because you're bringing in youth, and you are future leaders. And when it comes to university, we already know that in the Violence Against Women Act, we know that colleges, all the studies, date rape, manipulation, all of those things, really, a lot of sexual violence and domestic violence happens in university. So I'm really happy for the Take Back the Night that happens at any school, because they all need to be doing that. Yeah. So we are participating in that. We have COVID has changed the game. We're still kind of dealing with it. So all of our things are virtual, but we've had conferences. We're having webinar Wednesdays. We're having events on May 5th, podcasting. We release resource toolkits at MOSAC, pretty much everything with the pandemic virtual these days. Mm-hmm. But normally we would be having events to really shine the light on sexual violence and then provide advocates with new upgraded or tools on emerging issues. So we're doing some PR with the public to raise awareness, but then also and always working with advocates to enhance their ability to address emerging issues.
Yeah.
A lot.
Can you tell us more about the event on May 5th? Is it possible for anyone to join if they would like to? Is that something that's open? And if so, how would listeners participate in that?
Yes, May 5th is Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Day officially. Obama gave us that national proclamation, so that's awesome. We'll have it on our website. If I can find it while we're on tonight, I can put it in the chat for you to share. And that will be face-to-face and virtual. Okay. And May 5th is Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Day. And we know that that intersects with sex trafficking and sexual violence, as well as domestic violence.
Right.
Yeah.
So your website, www.miwsac.org. Can we go there to get information on May 5th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. Okay. And then we also have webinar Wednesdays. We have a Facebook page, which is MIWSAC as well. And you can join even some very simple, so you don't have to do a Zoom link, is every Wednesday at 2 Central. And every Wednesday this month, we're going to be talking about a variety of different sexual violence topics.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to struggle through that one a little bit.
Oh, no problem. Awesome. Carrie, did you have a question or a comment that you wanted to throw in there?
Hi, everyone. So first of all, I just want to say anyone that's experienced sexual assault or sexual harassment, molestation, any type of sexual violence, I want to say it's not your fault. That's one of the hardest things to believe. And I don't know why, but there's so much assumption of responsibility when you're a victim of that. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a really little girl, and I don't know why it's that way for women. And it reminds me of this one poem by Ntozake Shange. She's the author for Colored Girls. And it's a poem, and it's called Latent Rapist. And latent basically means hidden or unnoticeable or inconspicuous. And there's a verse from a line from the poem that really sticks out to me. And it goes, being betrayed by men who know us and expect, like the stranger that we always thought it would be, that we'll submit because we must have known. And that kind of idea of, oh, you must have known. Mm-hmm. Don't ever feel stupid. It's always their fault. It's never, ever your fault. And I want to say, even if you're thinking, well, I said yes, but I still don't feel right. Do I have the right to call it rape if I said yes? So that's a really interesting question. Sometimes women speak that from their mouth because they're scared. Because you think, I'm fighting this man and he's trying to do this to me. That's you're trying to protect yourself in any way you can. So sometimes yes can be the de-escalation action for you in that moment if you feel like someone has an intention to do this to you. So I want to say, even if that came from your mouth, but if you were uncomfortable, if you feel like you were forced in that moment, and the person knows what they're doing, so it's not like, oh, she said yes, so they know, okay? Like, they know.
Yeah.
And if you felt like that, yes, you have the right to call it that. You do. It's no one can tell you, because that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing, because the worst thing you could say to someone who went through something like that is like, oh, you wanted it. That's rape culture. That phrase alone is rape culture, which is basically like social ideas and stuff surrounding sexual assault, making women's bodies and their personal autonomy less valuable or non-existent. So no, you did not, and you didn't, and you don't have to feel like you deserved it or anything like that. It's just, there's so much self-hatred that comes along with sexual violence, and that's why I just want to say, it's not your fault. You didn't deserve it, and he did not have the right to do that.
Yes, so I absolutely agree. A yes out of fear, silence out of fear, compliance out of fear is still rape. And when you're in the moment of survival, you do what you need to do to survive. So no, you should not feel guilty for doing what you need to do to get through whatever it is that you're going through. So again, a yes out of fear, silence out of fear, or compliance out of fear, that is still rape. And I do not know why. I don't understand it either, but there is a huge amount of responsibility placed on the victims. There is responsibility placed on children. I don't understand it. There's responsibility placed on women. There's responsibility placed on men. I hear men being told, well, you're a man, it should not have happened. You're a man, this is not possible. You're a man, you should have done A, B, C, or D. I do not understand how responsibility can be placed on the shoulders of a victim. What you did or did not do did not cause this person to harm you. What you said or did not say, the way that you dressed, wherever you went, you have a right to be you. You have a right to go where you want to go, to do those things that you want to do, living your normal life. A child is a child. A 5-year-old has a right to be a 5-year-old. I do not understand how responsibility is placed on a victim. But I do know that we need to have more organizations and more advocates, such as Rebecca, to explain this, to make it known, to make that support possible, and to open a door for healing. Because it's very hard to come forth and say that I need help, feeling and knowing that someone is going to blame you and judge you and point the finger at you. And going through something traumatic as this, it's hard in the first place just to be able to ask for help, and then to try to explain what it is that happened and work yourself, through that process, work your way through. It's hard enough to do that. And to have judgment placed on top of you in that manner, it just makes it all the more worse. And so we are trying to get individuals to open up, to break their silence, to get the help that they need, and not force them further back into closets with shame. So I am looking forward to the Take Back the Night event at Gwinnett, other events such as that. But again, organizations and advocates such as Rebecca, events like Take Back the Night, so we can give voices back to those individuals. I mean, you can imagine just how hard it is just living a normal life day to day with just normal struggles. And then when you throw trauma on top of that, and then you put judgment on top of your trauma and criticism, it all can drive a person mad. And PTSD disorder is real. All of that is real.
If I could share real quick, I don't want to lose it. I get a little popcorn. Mm-hmm. I call them my popcorn thoughts, and they pop, and then the next one pops out the bowl, and then I got something. But two things came up. One is an I statement, and the other is an advocacy storytelling from the field. Mm-hmm. I'll make an I statement. I'm so grateful you talked about PTSD, and I have literally never shared this story in 22 years of my work. But I was 15 years old, and I had a crush on an upperclassman. So did I flirt? Yes, I was 15. I had a crush. I wanted to date him. And that went on for months. And then he raped me. And is that consent because I had a crush on him? Did I allow it? Did I want it? No. So it was bad. So there's that consent piece that even doesn't matter what you said, Minister Tia, what you're wearing doesn't matter. If you flirt, it doesn't matter. If you don't say, I want to do this. And I'll have to say too, I didn't remember that until I was 40 years old, and I'm 46 now. My PTSD buried it so deep. I have tears stinging in my eyes right now. So that's just something for us to remember, that PTSD and our little girls inside, or our little thems, or people, protect our minds and our hearts the way we need them to. So sometimes our counseling is going to be 20 years later. And then the other storytelling is a bit biological. It's a bit rugged. Some people may be offended, so just full disclosure, I apologize. But I've heard this from men, thems, and women and young women, that when it comes to sexual violence, whatever your identity is and your biology is, particularly with men, your body may respond, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
And you can be assaulted and raped, particularly, I want to be a lady here, but your body may respond, but that is not consent. Your body responding to a situation is not consent. And that is something that a lot of men deal with.
Yes.
Or it comes into the testimony of another person's body responding. So that's some form of consent, but it isn't. So these conversations have to go deep, where we really have to dismantle this rape culture, because not many people talk about that piece, particularly with men. But some people just don't understand how you can rape a man or male biological, People don't understand that. It's hard to talk about. I'm uncomfortable even saying it,
Right. And you can, a male can be raped, because when he says no, it's no. And if he has an erection during this assault, it does not mean that he wanted it. It doesn't. And people need to understand that. And that's just what it is. There are stories of men being asleep and women handcuffing them to bed railings. They wake up handcuffed. And, the crazy part of our culture will say, well, that's a man's dream. He would love that. Well, no.
Right.
No adult male wants to be chained to a bed, lose his physical freedom, mental and emotional freedom, and be at the beck and call of anyone. That is not a dream. That's a nightmare. And this is the person that is supposed to love you just as you're trying to love her or him or take care of them. You don't expect the person that you love to do this to you. In a lot of cases of sexual assault, of rape, it happens not by a stranger. It's with someone you know, a family member, a friend, someone who had access to you, someone who gained your trust and who was there, who grooming you, or just pretending. That's real. That psychological part is real. There was a man who gave a testimony, and he said, well, I was ashamed because my body betrayed me. My body, I had an erection, and this was happening to me against my will. Okay, and so we have to understand, and we have to give that compassion towards victims and survivors. That was a natural physical reaction that you could not control. And again, that did not mean yes, because you clearly said no. And we need to understand that. I really think society on some levels just needs to mature and grow up and understand. Because no is no. And that's the bottom line. That's how a man can be raped. Because he said no, and it happened anyway. Luv Bay, we want to take a moment and welcome you again to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, with the replay on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. We want to give some more resources. We have information on male sexual abuse, as we were just talking about. The website is www.malesurvivor.org. We also have the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Their number is 1-800-656-4673. We have Strong Hearts Native Helpline. Their website is www.strongheartshelpline.org. Their phone number is 1-844-762-8483. And again, we have Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition. Their website is www.miwsac.org. And their phone number is 1-877-995-4800. So, Carrie, I'll ask you, do you have a question or a comment?
Oh, I just wanted to share something. I wanted to go back to this kind of thing of, well, I said yes for my body language, and my body language was open, so was it my fault? So one time I was on a school trip, and there was, it was like a camp, it was kind of like a campsite, but it was by a lake. There was an employee who worked there, and he just decided to be following me everywhere and incessantly staring at me, things of that nature. That's called sexual intimidation, by the way, when someone's using physical attraction or sexual attraction towards you to kind of beat you down or make you intimidated or kind of perpetuate that power imbalance.
Yes.
So I was writing, because I like to write a lot. So I was writing in my journal, and I was at a table, and it was there was no one around. And he was there, so he's talking to me, and I knew he wanted to do something. It was just very predatory vibes. Mm-hmm. And so, I even, began to flirt with him a bit, because at this point I'm trying to see if I can get out of the situation, and seems like I'm flirting. And then, he did, touch me. And then the thing is he, he did, he went under my dress and everything. And then before that, though, I had even offered him my leg to feel my leg, but I didn't want him to do it. But it's if I could trick myself into believing what was happening to me was consensual, maybe it wouldn't hurt as much, because I knew the situation ahead of me was inevitable. So I was trying to protect the self after the event. I was trying to protect my mind after the event. But luckily, someone came and saw him. It was at this point, he was like pulling me and he was like trying to kiss me. And it was like, and kisses, the idea of a kiss has always been really special to me. Not saying that it should be like that for everyone, but that's something that I really didn't want, because like him touching me is one thing, but for me, like a kiss is really special, in just my subjective opinion. So yeah, the moral of the story is, even if your body language or if you did something, if it doesn't feel right, if you feel numb while the event is happening, or you feel like you're outside of your body while it's happening, or you feel like you're trying to anticipate what's going to happen next, that situation is not consensual. And you need to know that, because I really want people who go through that to get away from the idea of blaming themselves, especially women, because a lot of times we're seen as sexual objects. So it's like, I don't want, no matter what happened in that situation, if it didn't feel right to you, if you feel violated, feelings of violation are valid. That's the point I want to say.
Yes.
So when you know you can't fight a man, when you know you can't fight him, you do what you can.
That's exactly right. I want to comment on that, and then Rebecca, I'll ask you to give your follow up. I think I want to say, trust yourself. Whatever the situation is, trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Don't try to convince yourself of anything other than what it exactly is that you are feeling and thinking and seeing. And whatever it is that you need to do for yourself, whatever that is that you need to do to survive that moment so you can live, get through it, and be done with it and go on, that's what you do. Nobody can tell you what is right for you in the moment. No one can tell you how you need to survive whatever it is that you are experiencing. And I think so much so, even from the time that we are children, I think we are trained to doubt ourselves. We are trained to give our trust and our thinking over to someone else, to whomever is in authority, to the man, to the adult, to whomever seems superior, and I do not know why. I don't know where that came from, but I want to encourage and to instill into everyone listening, trust yourself, trust your instincts, do what is best for you. You don't have to follow another person into whatever they are thinking or doing or feeling. If you are uncomfortable, then it's absolutely wrong. If they're trying to convince you to go left and you want to go right, you don't feel right about that, then it's wrong. And it's okay for you to feel uncomfortable. It's okay for you to say no. It's okay for you to stand up for yourself. Whatever that looks like. Everybody is different. Every situation is different. So you protecting yourself, it's that if that is giving a yes, then you do that. You protecting yourself, if that is a no, then you do that. If that is silence, then you do that. You do what you need to do to survive. And I want to encourage someone to not feel guilty and to not feel bad and down on themselves for doing what they needed to do to survive a moment, because none of it is your fault. It's the perpetrator. It's the abuser. It's their fault, not you, for putting you in that situation and in that position. Rebecca, I would ask you if you would add.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes to all of that. And thank you for bringing that up, Carrie. So I'm going to be a little bit subversive for a moment because I understand the world we're in right now. I've been doing this, I'm not trying to be bougie or tall, But I've been in the work. I'm a survivor advocate, been doing it for 22 years professionally and volunteer. So I'm like in the weeds still. But I'm going to be a little subversive for our youth, and I'm going to keep it real. So back in the day, we had the language of it doesn't matter how you dress. It doesn't matter if you flirt. No means no. That's back in the day stuff. And now our mainstream world has taken that in, which is a good thing, because we were in, especially in Indian country and not especially, all of our communities. If sexual violence happened, we lived in silence. We literally suffered in silence, right? The name of the podcast. So now the mainstream world, this is like, it's regular folk understand this. This is language that we can talk about at our kitchen tables, and it's online everywhere, when at one time it wasn't. But I just want to reel it back and be subversive, because when mainstream gets mainstream, I'm on to the next thing. And by going to the next thing, I'm going to go back to back in the day. And, our modern movement is advancing in this topic and this language and this self-autonomy, which is beautiful and brilliant, and I'm here for it. But there are some issues. When there's some language out there, people who aren't in our work and don't know our common tongue of the language we speak, we hear things like, doesn't matter where you are, what you are wearing, or what you do. It is the perpetrator. Yes, it surely is. It's the perpetrator, because if we're going to end rape, we're going to stop the rapists and the violent harm doers. Correct. But it puts a chill down my spine where we're teaching these younger, not we, but the world, is giving this puffed up language that you can do and be wherever and say anything, and you're going to be safe, and then the justice system is going to have your back later, because that's just no. It isn't. So I kind of want to start the next level of this non-silent movement and remind our children and our youth, you need to read the room where you are to have that. It's not on them, because God forbid a tragedy happens, but we have to start talking about prevention more than just rapists are going to rape, and it doesn't matter where you are, what you're wearing, or what you're doing. Because we need to teach our children to be smarter and give them the tools and the triggers and the symptoms and what to look for. Because at the end of the day, our education will go no further in ending sexual violence if we don't talk about prevention. And that means young ladies, young men, them, read the room. Know when to leave that room because you're not safe. Not just because you were there and you didn't read the room and then a tragedy happened. Like, that prevention piece is so big. Even on CNN and on morning shows, they're preaching to the choir of, it is not your fault. It isn't. But then there's that, I don't know, give me a second. Let me formulate my words and calm down real quick. Just saying the bad people are going to do bad things, so you're not at fault, takes away the prevention of reading the room when you're in a bad situation at a dorm. And you turn around and all of a sudden you're the only female in a room in a frat house. And giving them the tools to understand these scenarios that we all know so well as survivors. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. It makes sense. I think that's a part of being aware. If you find yourself at a party, college campus, off campus, wherever, and you do all of a sudden notice you're the only female in a room, you need to leave. If you're in a situation, if someone is really badgering you and trying to pull you off into a secluded location, that's a red flag. So there are red flags that we need to see and be aware of. You could be anywhere, out to dinner, at a party. Don't take a drink that you didn't order for yourself. Some of those things, flags in that way. If you go to a bar, happy hour or dinner or whatever, don't accept drinks from people who you don't know. If you did not sit in front of the bartender and watch them make this drink or pour this drink and they give it directly to you, don't take it. If you have a drink yourself, and it doesn't even have to be alcohol. If you're drinking water, if you have club soda, if you have a Pepsi and you're drinking it and you set it down, if you turn your back away from that drink even for a moment, don't pick that glass up again. Get a different drink or just completely leave it, because you don't know anyone could put anything in that glass. So there are red flags, some things like that. Be aware of your situation. Be aware of your surroundings. Pay attention if the atmosphere changes. And even if there's not a change that you can physically see, if you just feel like something is wrong, if you feel like something is just off, then go. Leave. You don't owe anybody explanations. Nothing. Take an Uber, call a friend, do whatever you need to do to get out of that place and to get to where you need to be safely, then you do that. If you need to call the police, you call it. If you need to call mom and dad and say, hey, this is the situation, then you do that. So pay attention, and especially pay attention to yourself, your intuition, and your feelings. Don't ignore it. That little thing in the pit of your stomach, that gnawing thought in the back of your mind, don't ignore it. And maybe later on it'll turn out to be nothing. Rather be on the safe side. Let it turn out to be nothing as opposed to, a tragedy happening. But I do understand, what you said. There are red flags and signs that you need to be aware of. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Like, at the end of the day, this, domestic and sexual violence and trafficking has blown up in the last 10 years. I used to live in an island doing this work where none of my regular friends out in the world, they were like, what do you do? I don't get it. It was like still silent. And our words have become really bold about, it doesn't matter what you wear, where you go, what you do, your consent. We've become bold and we can speak. It's not even being bold, man. It's just being honest. Mm-hmm. But the numbers haven't changed with having bold language. Yeah. So that's where, we need to be subversive in talking about this prevention piece, because the numbers have not come down, but we have bold language. So we got to move on to the next thing.
Yes.
And I think we should always be talking about reading the room.
And then, Tia, when you were talking about signs or the gnawing thought in the back of your head, I wanted to take a moment to talk about incest, because incest can really be a completely different kind of context and situation for someone, because it's like your family. Mm-hmm. But if there's someone really close to you, even if it's like your father, your brother, your sister, you're kind of remembering, because a lot of times with incest, you bury it, like Rebecca was saying. Mm-hmm. And you may remember it years later, and you think, oh, that family member, oh, my brother or my uncle, he would never hurt me. Am I remembering this wrong? It did make me feel weird, but that, no. Yeah. Because why would that be in your head? That's so undesirable to have in your head, or so just horrible to have in your. Why would that just be in your head about a family member randomly? How, you need to take time to examine that. I know it's painful. Maybe do it with the help of a mental health professional, but that deserves attention. That memory or that feeling that you're having about this family member, even if it's resurfacing, you need to take a look at that. That's very important. And another thing is, I wanted to say for being a wife, I'm not a wife myself, but just hearing from other women, an ultimatum, you having to push your sexual boundaries because of an ultimatum from your husband or from your wife, if we're talking about a man, that is an assault on womanhood. Because if you're having to push your boundaries because you feel like your husband's going to cheat, or you feel like he's going to leave you or do something unfavorable if you don't do this sexual favor he wants or sexual act, I know it's your husband, but that's an assault, because intimacy should not be built on ultimatum. That's wrong. Power imbalance has no presence in the bedroom. If it's a little, people do their own thing, and I have no issue with that. But that's really not a power imbalance. It's like an illusion that like excites people. Mm-hmm. But I'm talking about, you guys know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So that's not okay. That's an assault. That's all I wanted to say, because I just really wanted to talk about sexual violence from family members, because that can really, sometimes it's really hard to believe for the person who endured it. It's really hard to believe. You gaslight your own self. But you're like, no, it's like tearing down your entire reality. Like when your dad or your brother or your uncle, someone you grew up with, when all of a sudden they're like this monster, that's like tearing down your whole worldview. You think it's an isolated event? No, that like messes with your entire worldview and reality. So it's very hard, but take time to examine it, because at the end of the day, it's your body and it's your life.
Carrie, I am so grateful. I did domestic violence work for the first 10 years of my career. There are so many. Carrie, I am sending you massive heart vibes right now for that, because I don't think mainstream America, Alaska, Hawaii, and our territories know that rape happens in a marriage. Mm-hmm. Marriage is not consent. And it blows people's mind. Go, what? No, you can say no, mama, or papa, or whoever, them, you are. People don't know that. And that's a huge prevention issue again, right? So Thank you so much for talking about that today. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, yes, Carrie, I agree with you. Marriage is not consent. That is not what that means. And so again, to a wife or a husband, if you are saying yes to your spouse out of fear of what they will do to you, out of fear of them going to someone else, if you're silent or if you're complying out of fear, that is sexual assault, that is sexual abuse, that is rape. Same thing. So if you put a ring on my finger, that does not mean that you can manipulate me mentally, physically, sexually. It does not mean that. And unfortunately, that is a lie that goes along with some marriage vows, and individuals are taken advantage of and abused in that manner. I also wanted to say that the mind is an absolutely powerful thing. It really is. And so when memories resurface, they resurface at a time when you're able to handle it and able to deal with it. So you may have memories that resurface little by little. And I highly encourage anyone to seek out counseling. And yes, Rebecca, PTSD is a real thing. And it does save lives until we're ready to handle those memories. I'm speaking at Gwinnett on Monday. It's a university. And so I can share that, my own experience, my blocked memory. I was 17 years old when I had my experience of being raped. I buried that memory until I was 28. I didn't remember a thing about it until I was 28 years old. One day, the memories just came flooding back, and it was like I was that 17-year-old little girl again. I was able to handle it at that moment. I sought out counseling and I went through it. But between the time of 17 and 28, I couldn't deal with it then. I had to get through college. I had to get through, taking care of my family, doing what I needed to do. So I blocked it. And again, the mind is a powerful thing. The memories just come, be it all at once or be it little by little. And when that happens, do not doubt yourself. Do not deny yourself. Love yourself. Comfort yourself. Give yourself the space and the peace to go through your healing process and do what you need to do, because memories are real. And for me, in those moments, it was like the memories were me walking through that physical reality again. It was like I was that 17-year-old girl again. So it's real. And I know that that's hard for individuals to understand if you have not dealt with it, if you have not gone through it. I would have never thought of having a memory or something that I could forget about for literally years, and then it just come back. Well, it's a real thing. It happens.
Can I add to
Yes.
Minister Tia? In our Lakota native language, Tukashla is the word for God. And when those, like, so let's keep it real. So when we've had people we dated, how many people did you sleep with? You know, the names. You got the list. It's just part of life.
Yeah.
For some, maybe not for everybody. Well, that person, that number didn't exist in my list. That name didn't exist in my list because it was erased from that PTSD.
Right.
Until it came back. And when it came back, it was, oh my God. But I want to say, I'm a child abuse survivor. So when I was living in a home from a baby to a teenager, when I ran away, I had so much child abuse I was dealing with. I said to Kashila, God took that from me because I couldn't handle it because I could have broke.
Right.
God gave me the tool I needed in my mind and in my heart and my spirit to take that from me until I was old enough to carry it. And now I carry it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I believe the same for myself. I got to a point in my life where, you know, God knew I was able to handle that and deal with it. And I did when I was able to. It's real. I can't stress how real it is. And I also can't stress enough how we all need to take care of ourselves, be it memories, be it an experience or reality that you're dealing with right now. Do not push your own judgment aside. Do not push your thoughts and feelings aside. Take care of yourself. And I'm still thinking of the colleges and the students. So another thought that I just had, I wanted to say, when you go out with friends, even if it's not on a college campus, you know, ladies, even if we just go out together, you know, if you go out with a group of friends, if you start your night with a group of friends, you should end your night with that same group. Don't just drop off one or two here or there. If 3 or 4 of you go out together, then 3 or 4 you need to come back together. So have that responsibility for each other. You know, take care of each other. It's like, you know, sometimes you go out to a group, if there's going to be drinking, there's a designated, you know, driver to make sure everybody gets home safe. All right, well, it's the same. If you're just going out, hanging out, if you know that, you know, there's a guy lurking around, he wants to hook up with one of you, none of you know who he is, you know, you've never seen him before, you know, at the end of the day, we can't force anyone to do anything, but try your best not to let, you know, your friend go off with some stranger. Just don't. I mean, if there's anything at all possible that you can do as a friend, even just to reiterate, you know, we don't know who this is. We came together. Let's just stay together, have fun, do that. So I just wanted to emphasize, you know, that. Just be a friend. You know, do what you can do. Be responsible for yourself and be responsible as a friend. Carrie?
I was just going to say, I'm 23 years old, so just wanted to say with my generation, especially in pop culture, I just wanted to address like the eroticization of roughness, basically, during the act of intimacy. That is not like an indicator of masculinity or like a real man, first of all.
Right.
Also, if you initially truly consent, but then you're asking the person to lighten up or something like that, they should lighten up. Like, that's not consent. Then at that point, that's not consensual because you're not enjoying yourself.
Yes.
That's not okay.
You can say no at any time. Even if you say yes, you know, and you begin to be intimate with whatever, something happens that you don't like. If this takes a turn and you're like, you know what, I changed my mind, you can say no. Two people come together, you know, you may think that you're on the same page, and then you see something go a different direction, and you're like, no, I don't want this. I don't care what the reason is. For whatever reason, if you change your mind, you can change your mind. You can say that. whatever position you're in, if the dominant one, less dominant, whatever, I don't care. If you change your mind, you can change your mind. Rebecca, you wanted to say something?
Yes. So I'm Brooklyn 90s girl, and S&M was different back in the day. S&M was a thing. It was consent. It was a choice. And then the dang movie came out, 50 Shades of Grey, and made like
right.
regular intimacy was boring and you needed to be all somehow. S&M is a fetish thing. It's a choice by the people involved. But now, like, everything has to change and evolve somehow, that intimacy can't be just a beautiful thing where people are comfortable. Because, you know, we talk about sexual violence, but there's also healthy sexuality.
Yes.
Where healthy sexuality is beautiful and intimate and a spiritual thing. But yes, Carrie, I am giving you a lot of love again for bringing that up, because these trends, they're messing it up. Just to be honest, the trends are messing it up, and then people are doing things they don't want to do because it's trendy, or they saw it in a movie. But I'm a 90s girl, so S&M in the 90s, I was in a dominatrix dungeon. She made $10,000 a day. Is that trafficking? We could debate it, but there's sex workers who choose, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's messing up what people choose as their own intimacy, to follow a fad or be more masculine or more of a woman, even, right? Be more of a woman. You do S&M. You don't want that. S&M is a new joke.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, y'all. Appreciate it.
And also, that's a conversation that needs to be had, because if you're with someone and the energy and you guys' sexual energy is not matched. So for example, if the other partner has a higher libido, like they want it more, but you don't want it as much. That's a conversation that's when it comes to sexual intimacy, I think communication is really important. Cause that's, cause it's not saying, cause just because you don't match in the sexual energies immediately, that doesn't mean that you guys aren't meant to be or something like that. I think talking is really important. And I know we've chatted a lot, but I want to make sure we're not vilifying intimacy for you guys with this conversation. So no, it's not, intimacy can be great for women. It can be, amazing. There's a bunch of pros of having what we have, but, just basically talk about it and everything like that. And sex is something that can be really healing. It can be good. It can be nice. It can be safe.
Yes. And so with that, I would say conversations need to be had. There needs to be communication. So if you are entering into a sexual relationship with anyone, it needs to be open, clear, honest communication, because there is a such thing as a healthy sex life. But when you cross over into that point where you're dealing with sexual assault, you're dealing with sexual violence, you're dealing with rape, then you have issues with that. And remember, your yes is yes, your no is no. Even if you initially give a yes, no one can take that away from you. So in a healthy relationship, there's communication. So there should not be a problem. You should be able to say, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. You should be able to either compromise, or you should be able to say, this is not for me. We need to part ways, or we can learn, we can grow together. That's all a part of communication. But remember, that's also a part of a healthy relationship. When you deal with rape, sexual assault, sexual violence, your choice is taken away. There's nothing healthy about that at all. And so we are now at the hour. And so, Rebecca, I really want to give you just the last comment of the evening. I thank you for being with us. Thank you, Carrie, so much. Thank you for all of your comments as well. Rebecca, I just want to give you the final word as we close for the evening.
Wopi Latonka, thank you so much. I mean, I'm going to close with what you just closed with, that pillow talk. Have the conversation. We love who we love, so make love in a loving way and have loving conversations about it. And if you never feel safe, all the words that were mentioned earlier, follow your gut, your spirit feels something off, always follow your intuition. And it's not your fault. And there are tens of thousands of advocates, and many of us are survivors doing this work. So your local program, make the call. If you're confused, make the call. You don't know what to do or you're not even sure what you're feeling, make the call and start that healing journey. I'm 46 and I'm still on a healing journey right now, and that's okay. I'm raising 2 young teenage boys. I have a 24-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And we have many conversations because I'm a survivor. And we need to have those conversations with our youth on a regular. Wopi Latanka, thank you so much for having me again. I can't wait to come back.
Thank you so much. Luv Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from the program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We thank you again for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.